Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Bordertown Strange. I'm Pam. This is my co-host, Jess. And tonight we are diving into part 2 of one of the most compelling UFO cases on record. It's the Rendlesham Forest Incident. 3 nights in December 1980 with strange lights, structured craft, and military witnesses, including a couple of incidents that we're going to talk about tonight that were leading up to the big ones that are never really discussed. Tonight, we're going to push further into the incidents, the cover-ups, the theories, and all the lingering mysteries behind Rendlesham. We're joined once again by fellow Bordertown Paranormal members, Enzo Cyrille, retired USAF, and Mark Bannon, who works in the aviation industry. Their combined military and aviation experience brings sharp and grounded insight to one of the most debated UFO encounters in modern history. So we want to welcome all new listeners and members to the channel, as well as first-timers in the chat. If you're not joining us live but listening on replay, thank you and welcome to you as well. So before we get started with our What the Weird Word, Jess, do we have any housekeeping?
Just the usual. Take a second. If you are hanging out with us right now on Facebook, just take a quick second to like and share. And if you haven't followed our page yet, go over there and do that real quick. We would love to have you as part of the family. Next, if you're hanging out on YouTube, go ahead and give us that thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that bell so you know when we're bringing you new content. And every time we go live, it'll give you a little 30 minutes heads up so you know when to hop on. Also, check out our back catalog if you get the chance. If you haven't been watching since season 1, it's all completely free. We don't put anything up behind a paywall, so you can go back and see all of the fun we started out with. We pre-apologize for the first couple shows. Those were fun.
Our deer in headlights.
I know. I thought you guys did pretty well compared to my first couple of shows.
We did okay. I'm not too ashamed of it. Also, if you are a podcast listener, you can get us anywhere you listen to your podcast. So listen to us in the car if you'd like. An interesting, long, drive to your vacation. We'll keep it interesting. Also, if you have a favorite topic or a personal story that you would like to hear on air, we will totally do that for you, and we would love to know your topic ideas. Not that we don't have 1,000,000,001 in front of us, but we would love to put what you would like to hear in there too.
Absolutely. It's funny because every time we think, surely we're going to eventually run out of topics. No, we had 6 more topics,
Yeah.
As soon as we say that, boom, a whole bunch more comes into our lap. But that's okay. That's longevity. We're good for it.
Yeah. And the last thing is we are currently gearing up for this year's Paracon. This year it's moved to August 8th. We are getting ready to make the schedule and start putting out all the information on that. And if you want to follow along and see what all is going to be happening, you can like our Facebook page at Bordertown Paranormal, or you can head over to our website, www.bordertownparanormal.com, and find all the links to all of our stuff in our podcast and our social media pages. And you can see all the updates for the Paracon as that starts to come up. And I think that's it, right?
We're getting ready to throw it in high gear this weekend. It's going to be one of our big meetings. So
yes. And with a little bit less time to make it in this year, but we can do it. We're professionals.
Yeah.
Well,
or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go with that.
We may still have amateur status, but we're up there in the ranks. Okay,
We're
moving on.
We're in our 8th year. This is actually, can you believe that's our 8th year this year?
It is.
To put on
It's crazy.
Paracon? It's
crazy.
nutty.
Yeah.
For sure. So are we ready we got a lot to cover tonight, believe it or not. When we said part 2, we were like, do we have enough? Oh my gosh, we have enough for part 2 and then some.
Yeah.
So we'll be jumping right in right after the What the Weird Word. It's Jess's turn this week, so I'll pull it up here real quick.
Yeah. So in the hunt for this week's weird word of the week, I thought it might behoove us to do Foo Fighters, because while Foo Fighters aren't really included with this particular topic, it is UFO and military base, so I figured that works, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Besides them being one of my favorite bands, Just saying.
There's that.
So Foo Fighters. Foo Fighters were mysterious aerial phenomena observed by Allied aircraft pilots during World War II. These incidents involved sightings of strange glowing objects that would follow or perform impossible maneuvers around military planes. The origin and nature of these objects were never conclusively identified, leading to speculation ranging from enemy surveillance technology to natural atmospheric phenomena. The term Foo Fighter was used by the pilots to describe these baffling encounters, and it has since become part of the broader UFO lexicon, representing one of the earlier modern instances of reported unidentified aerial phenomena. And I apologize, because apparently I'm not going to talk well tonight. This should be fun.
Well, I mean, you fit right in with the rest of
I
it.
was going to say, I never talk well, so.
Nobody's going to notice. Yeah.
But if there is a language that can be butchered, I will do it.
Oh, 100%.
It's considered part of our charm now.
I mean, or lack thereof.
You're not wrong. Too funny.
It looks like we have a birthday in the chat.
We do.
Woo!
Yeah. So it's Sharon's birthday. Everybody give her a birthday shout out.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Awesome. And hello to everybody else in the chat. We got Ian's hanging out. Tony's hanging out. I can't get my thing to scroll up all the way. Hello to everyone else there.
Too funny. I'm going to drop this screen really quick. There we go.
All right. So back to Rendlesham, because Lord knows we couldn't fit it all into one show. In fact, I think we could probably do a few more shows on it if we really wanted to get down in the weeds. But we're not going to do that because I'll go insane. Yeah.
Show them the book you got in.
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, I told you guys that I couldn't get this book in because I didn't have time. The dude who wrote it self-published. So you can't just get a Kindle version of it. And this has a lot of great stuff in it, and I got it in, but this sucker's 500 pages. So me and it had some date time this week. We did.
Quality time.
Although, not as much quality time as I got with the Enigma, who was twice as big, that I read the week before the last show.
Ooh.
So we're going to start calling you Crazy Eyes Jess because
I'm telling you, I can't really focus really well unless it's right here. So
Yeah, everything's going to be within arm's reach.
I've got everything really pressed in, so we're okay. We're okay today.
That's funny.
Okay, so when we left off 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Colonel Holt and the main guys' experience when they went back to the landing site the next evening, and all the crazy shenanigans that was going down there. So we had talked about they couldn't keep the light-alls lit. The big, huge machines that ran off of gas that was to light the whole area. Nothing was working. Guard dogs that were brought in would not come into the area. They had men crying that they were having to drag out of this area here. And then the UFO stuff started picking back up, and it was shanking through the trees back and forth and up and down, and it was dripping what they thought was colorful magma and metal off of this thing. And it culminates in this farmer's pasture, and it explodes into 5 bright white balls and just disappears. And they go out into the field, and they don't find anything except for a lot of cow patties they get to step in. Right?
Nature's landmine.
Exactly. So when we left off, they had just went, "Oh man, I stepped in cow crap," and then looked up and went, "Uh-oh, look, there's 5 gray saucers in the sky over the base." And that's where we left, because we told you it was not done yet. There's still more crazy to come.
So we left these poor guys standing there in cow patties this whole time.
Yeah.
2 weeks they're standing up.
Man, it's got to smell bad.
Yeah. They're probably nose blind by now, hopefully, for their sake.
That'd be like a, high school locker room or something.
Oh.
That does
Maybe
bring
not
up
that bad.
this image, this scent in your head. You're like, "Ugh."
Yeah. A little stinky. Plus, I'm sure it was damp out there.
Oh yeah, it is absolutely going to be damp out there almost all year long.
You know, Jess, you were talking about the fact that men left crying, and I think it would be a good time to reiterate these were all military men. These were
Yeah.
not, just run of the mill guys. These were seasoned professionals that
Well, now, not all of them. There were a lot of newbies
they
there
were
on the site running the lidals and stuff. There were men there who were only 18, 19. So I really,
that's
should
true.
I say men? Should I say, some of these people were still very young. So
We did talk about a little bit last week how this was the day, like Christmas night, at 2 a.m. on the 26th
Good
of
point.
December. So the people on duty, kind of the BT, nothing against them, but everyone like jockeys for position and fights for getting Christmas Day off and stuff like that. And so you don't have your top line folks working Christmas night, not really, but still, when you've got folks that, I mean, honestly, nobody's ever experienced that kind of stuff where you've got strange lights and stuff's flitting about in the sky, and then you've got saucers showing up on the scene, weird ass fog and stuff like that. It's going to take its toll when you're thinking, I'm just going to hang out in the office till my shift's over on, the 26th. I'll go home. I'll go, back to my barracks or whatever on the 26th and maybe get a good breakfast or something before I go to bed, working all night. And then all this stuff just drops in their lap.
That would instill a deep fear in you. You're right. I mean, yeah, the unknown for sure. Good point.
okay, so they look down, cow patty. They look up, they see actual saucers. Now, depending on who you're talking to, there was either 3 or 5. They have not yet decided. Half of them say 3, half of them say 5. And as all 4 of us know, depending on who's viewing it, your view can be very different than the person standing right next to you.
Yep.
That's just the way it is with these high strangeness type of situations.
Well, even
Really
in
weird.
ordinary situations, everybody's
Yeah.
got a different point of view.
Yeah. So
yeah.
they're seeing this, and they head out of the pasture. They get out of the cow patties. They climb back over the fence, and Colonel Holt is calling in to Bentwater's air traffic control, saying, "Hey, are you guys seeing this?" Now the control tower says we don't see anything. However, later on, those 3 men recanted that and said, "No, we totally saw them." One of them was like, "I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to lose my position."
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the 2 other was like, "I didn't want to make that dude mad by turning it in, so we went with what he said." That's basically how that went.
It was the
They-
80s, and they very well could have lost their positions.
Yes.
Yeah,
In
and been
fact-
blackballed.
Yeah, they were not only seen at the tower at Bentwater, they were also seen at the tower at the other base, and they were seen at the civilian tower that was like, I think it was like 10 minutes away. I can't remember exactly where that sat at, but it was seen. It was seen by all of them. So that's going on. They're saying, no, we're not seeing at the tower, but they are. So now the team has gone to the furthest side of this farmer's field to look at these 3 to 5 objects in the sky, and they realize that this thing is flashing red, and they're literally zooming back and forth across the sky, pretty much like this, just zigzagging all over the place. They would hold completely still, and then they would zigzag again, as if they were trying to trick them on where to look like they were at a tennis match. So then one of them skirts out in front of the other, and they make like a landing party, and they start going back down again. So we're going to get back into them playing in and out of the trees, in and out of the trees. They're also at the same time, the security police at Bentwaters were watching the exact same thing, and so were the others at the base. So now we've got everybody watching. In fact, the local police department had also shown up and was now a part of it also. It's crazy, crazy, crazy stuff.
Definitely can't be covered up easily.
Yeah. So, without going into too much detail, because we'll be here all night, I'm going to sum it up a little bit. They play cat and mouse with them again. They're in and out all over the place, zigzagging out of the trees. And then finally, at about 3:16 a.m., we get the culmination of all of this. This one main one comes over the top of them in the clearing there at the original landing site, and a laser beam comes straight down from the middle of this and lights up the whole area. Light goes out, they zoom off, the end for the night. They make it back to the base about 3:30 in the morning. Pretty raggedy. In fact, Colonel Holt says he heads back to his place wherever he's sleeping, his quarters or whatever. Can't sleep and decides, you know what? I'm going to go up and get my film developed, because he had been taking some photos. Which, by the way, later on came back completely fuzzy, as did the other two. There was two other gentlemen who also took photos, all of which came back fuzzy. Now, whether or not that happened because of the high strangeness of it, or if they were made fuzzy by the gentlemen who were in charge of developing said film, because they were under orders.
Very easily could have happened either way.
It could have.
Yeah.
And it could also be fuzzy because in all the excitement, they weren't able to properly focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have been a lot of reasons.
Yeah. So it pretty much ends for them. Little did they know that there was actually a little bit more aerial activity that night over Woodbridge that some other officers and stuff witnessed, but were never actually reported. Because I think by this time they were like, been there, seen that. And they talked about it later on.
Plus, the giggle factor was very much a thing back then and as we mentioned last week, if you're on a base with, nuclear weapons, even if they're just stored there, the level of importance to that is not going to survive saying, hey, I saw saucers in the sky. You're not going to be working there for long. They don't want you. You don't want, we don't want you weirdos working around nukes if you're seeing, mystery sky ships and such. So that's a very good reason, because it'll, that's detrimental to your career, no matter what job you have in the military back then. So a lot of stuff didn't come out until many years later, after usually a lot of these people retired or moved on to some other base or something like that.
Yeah. Right here at this time period in it's the night of the 27th, it's early 28th. We have conjectures start to point in. This is where things are going to start splitting off a lot, and we're not going to talk a lot about some of the ones that haven't been truly proven. But this is where a lot of the officers later on in years recanted or said, no, we went back out and we saw more. There's not a whole lot of information except for what they said later on. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about it, but I will mention here that at about 4:30 in the morning, Lieutenant Burrows and another gentleman said that they asked permission from Colonel Holt to go back out to the landing area, and they actually got chased by one.
Yeah.
But Colonel Holt later on said, I never gave anyone permission to go back out there. As far as I know, we were all back at the base, and no report was ever made, so...
That's the stinky part. There's just enough back and forth on it, where he said, she said kind of thing, that it kind of almost puts a bad light on a lot of it,
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
But again, it is the 80s, and it is the military, and a lot of people are going to be in hardcore denial trying to protect their reputation.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
And usually stuff like that, that's almost one of those things, especially for like that generation of folks that were living through that. They would probably take that to their grave. They would never repeat any of it.
Yeah.
We see that with
maybe,
Bigfoot
maybe, much later in their life, long after they've retired, they may tell, their nephews or nieces a tall tale or something like that. But after so much time has gone by, and your memory isn't the best sometimes, especially as you get older. I
Yeah.
can attest to that. But yeah, but a lot of that stuff where it's that mindset is just block it out. It's like, just pretend like it didn't happen, because it's only going to be trouble if you start asking questions and stuff like it. Because it wasn't even like discussed amongst each other for the most part, just as a culture back then in the military. My time, nobody ever would be like, man, I think I saw something weird. No, that was never said.
No, you didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, when we've had presents, we've had people come in from the community listening to what we're talking about and go, well, I've never seen anything like that, but this happened. And you look at them like, yeah, that's kind of what we just talked about.
We had at one of our things, we had a lady, she's actually a friend of my mom's, which my mom is a hardcore naysayer on all of anything woo. She brought her friend just to support us at the Paracon one year, and her friend's 97 this year, so it's been a while, but she came in and listened to one of the UFO panels, and she was like, back in the 50s, my husband and we saw some kind of something in the sky right there by Coffeyville. And my mom was like, what? But yeah, she has no reason.
Generation.
She has no reason to make a story up. So,
because even if they did say something, they maybe, because everyone else of that, the culture is, people are cuckoo crazy if they're seeing, saucers in the sky. I keep thinking back to Geneseo this past year, where we talked about a big UFO flap that happened back in the 70s here in western Kansas, around that area. And after we did the presentations, a couple of young guys came up and they're like, my mom tells a story of when she was a little kid, and there was like this saucer that was basically following their car down the road, kind of a thing. And she lived here where this stuff happened, and it's in that time frame. It's like,
yeah.
She wasn't making it up.
No.
Yeah, no, a lot of other people experienced it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, you kept your mouth shut.
You did.
Yeah.
It has a good point too. It was the height of the Cold War. You had to be careful what you report and say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. So what we've explained here that we finished and at the last one were the basic big ones. The ones that everybody kind of knows. If you do any kind of a little dive into it, look it up on the internet. That's the basics you're going to find. I think we gave you a little bit more information than what you would usually get from just the basics. We gave you a little bit of insight into some of those, but that's it. A lot of people think that's it. That is not it whatsoever. There were 20 plus more incidents that happened. And hundreds of people who saw all of those. And I was telling these guys, I found 3 on the bases the year leading up to this. 3 big incidents that involved orangey red glowing balls, the same as they were seeing. So this obviously wasn't like a one-time isolated incident.
Yeah.
And I picked what I thought were some of the more interesting ones, because we don't have time to sit here and go through every single incident and still get to all the other fun stuff. But I'm going to go over a few of them with you. One of them I lightly talked about in the last show, but I finally found all the information on it. So I'm going to hit it one more time because it's one of the more interesting ones. It's called the Tamplin incident, and it involved a lady named Bonnie Tamplin. And I told you in the last pod that she had gone out and they got a radio from her that she was scared, and that a ball had chased her and gone through the vehicle. Yep. But that's all that you hear about it. But there was so much more to it than that. Apparently, someone at the base had had seen another ball out in the woods and had sent Bonnie out, who was on duty at the time, to go investigate it. And while she was out, not only did this ball chase her and go through the vehicle, but it also came straight at her, and she swerved in her Jeep and rolled it.
Oh, my.
She managed to climb out. She was okay. And when she climbed out, the ball was there waiting for her and started chasing her down the road. And she turned and fired at it 3 times with her service arm.
Wow.
And it shot off into the sky, and that's when she radioed back screaming and crying. In fact, one gentleman who was talking about it was there listening to her on the other side, and they sent emergency personnel out to her as fast as they could, and he stood watch at the east gate where they brought her, not the east gate, at the Butley gate. They brought her in first, completely dirty, disheveled. She'd lost her beret, inconsolable. And about 2 minutes later, another guy drove her Jeep in with so much damage on it, it could not have rolled. And no one saw her for the rest of the time that she was on the base. And 3 days later, they flew her out and back to the States, and she's never spoken about it again. So nobody knows quite certain exactly what happened that night with her. That's as much as they know.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I hear that one.
well, and she may have blocked it out. The shock may have made her forget.
Yeah. And that was
Well, I feel there was probably a little coercion there as well, because we showed the paperwork of the event incident from John Burroughs, one of the security people, that he was the guy that actually got up close to the craft on that first night, and he wrote, I think he said it was like 4 or 5 of the yellow notepad kind of things, pages of his events, what he witnessed, his whole statement. And they came back later with like a single page that basically said, I responded to report of lights, didn't see anything or nothing to report after searching these areas, and we called it clear. Which is like, that's not what about all this other stuff? It's like, no, this is what happened. You will sign this now.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. For something like that, where you're actually involved with that, where a lot of people witness it, you've got physical evidence, you've got the vehicle that's flipped over, whatever injury she occurred, the radio traffic. Not unheard of for someone like that to be spirited away to someplace else, out of sight, out of mind kind of a thing, especially at an overseas location. I've seen that, people like make some kind of transgression where if they were at their home base, they'd have to face music and they'd be punished or whatever. At an overseas location, you're put on the next plane out, you're gone, kind of a thing. And it's strange how that works. Not like it doesn't happen all the time, by any means, but in a case like that, I'm not surprised at all that she disappeared.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah. It actually happened to more than just her.
I believe
she got moved off the base. So the next one I want to talk about was super interesting. I'd never heard of this one. I found it in the Gary Heselton book. So much great stuff. If you want it's the best book on Rendlesham, in my opinion. It hits every topic and it hits it well. But this story was astounding to me, and it actually happened while the original sighting was happening. That very first one with Pendleton and the rest of them. This was happening back at the base, right near the East Gate. And this dude claims that he actually didn't know what was going on. He just knew that personnel were going out of the base like crazy for some reason. All he knew was that he was brought in to work on one of the planes. He was a mechanic. He was installing new doors on a F-4D aircraft right near the East Gate, so he was kind of privy to kind of what was going on over there, the people going in and out, but didn't really know what was happening. And this is his story. He got dropped off to install these doors on these planes, had his little toolbox with him, sat down and got to work, and the dude that dropped him off and said, "Hey, there's some weird stuff going on tonight. Don't worry about it. Just let them do their thing." He gets to work, and all of a sudden, he notices that there's some bright lights off in the distance that are kind of in the wrong spot, and he stands up and he kind of watches them for a little bit, and within seconds, they're right there. They've zoomed up right near him. And this object, he says, is literally hovering just right beside him and just not very high up, just humming, making this really strange humming sound. He watches it literally for like 15 to 20 minutes while he's trying to work, just trying to kind of ignore it because he's not quite sure what's happening. And he says he notices that it kind of leaves a little bit and he goes back to work again, and then it comes back even closer. It's literally right on the other side of the fence. He said it was kind of diamond shaped and black on the bottom. Only 30 yards away. And where he's at underneath the airplane, he feels the whole plane shudder. And he's like, what the heck? And he steps back and he hears this clinking sound on top of the plane. So he gets up on a ladder and he climbs up there, and just as he comes up over the top of it where he can see, the whole thing shudders again, and he sees something pop down off the other side and move down to the tail of the plane and hop off. And he watches the bushes that were right there on the other side of the gate or the fence move.
Weird.
And he's like,
Wow.
what the hell?
Yeah,
Okay, so
gremlins.
maybe Foo Fighters is more pertinent than we thought. I mean, even more.
There's a man on the wing.
Okay, so
Thank you, William.
he's freaking out. He looks down the way of the plane and he realizes in the dew, because there's dew sitting on top of the plane, there's little smudge marks that he can only say must be like a foot mark, although he didn't say it had any kind of a pattern of a foot, but there's smudge marks.
Like a cat that's on your car.
He's freaking out.
Those
He
cats.
turns, and at the exact moment, now imagine this is all happening within seconds. It's happening really, really fast. He turns, and as he does, he hears bam, bam. There's shooting going on at the east gate. Remember, he's like right there near it. He hears shooting going on. He turns, and the guard there is shooting towards the bushes at the gate, saying, what the hell is that? Get away. Get away. And then bam, bam, bam. More shooting. Right? And as this is happening, because he has this from the vantage point of being on the ladder, he looks where this dude is shooting at the bushes, and those bushes move too. And he glances back at the bushes where he'd seen them moving, and he's seeing movement, and this is moving, and he realizes both bushes are moving towards that freaking thing that had just landed. And he's like, what the hell is happening?
Ah,
That's crazy.
That is wild.
Yeah. So, let me make sure I'm getting the story right, because I don't want to leave anything out. It was really, really interesting. Yeah, he says everything took place within seconds. He said, in a little bit, the technical sergeant that had dropped me off arrived back again to pick me up. I told him what happened, and he inspected the marks on the aircraft himself. He just got down, shook his head, quickly said, pack up your tools, and we were out of there. I couldn't see the lights any longer at this point, or the craft. No formal record of this incident was ever made. Although I was off duty the next day, I was told to report in. I was told in a private meeting with Master Sergeant Day that I had gone missing that night. And I was apparently the fifth one that had. There was missing time for him.
Holy
He went missing. And he's never figured out who the other four were. Now, I'm guessing they might have been talking about Pendleton and his group, because they went missing for a while.
they had some missing time as well. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm assuming that's who Day is referring to. He does not tell him, however, how long he had been missing, but he had been missing. He said, I was told the gate officer was being interrogated at that very moment, and I was never to speak of this incident. Day said he didn't want me to have to go through that too, so he had me transferred off base and to the States within 4 days.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Another one.
Yeah. And this one I tend to believe. I didn't write it all down, but he talked about how it really messed with his time. He only had so much time left on that base, and then he was supposed to go off and do something out and then be done. But because he got shipped out early, it messed with his times and stuff, and things got screwed up for him really badly, and he didn't get to go do what he was wanting to do. So
career wise, if you're going to be in basically past like your 10-year point, you're shooting for that full 20-year, you have to do like an overseas tour, at least like a 1-year remote or like a 2-year, accompanied tour, like so you could have like your wife and kids with you and stuff like that. But you have to do that in order for you to retire at 20 years. Unless you're like me, where you traveled so much that you were already gone past those windows already within a certain period of time.
They're
But
like,
anyways,
oh yeah, you're good.
Yeah. We're like, of course you're good. You don't need us. You've already served overseas, just not all in the same spot. But anyways, so that's another one of those detrimental, because I'm sure once he got back to the States or whatever, and everything cooled down, he had to go overseas somewhere else. And I'm sure it wasn't anywhere in the European theater at all. He probably had to go to Japan or someplace like that to probably have to do at least a minimum year someplace just to get his time in and all that stuff. And because it's not like you can go for 6 months. It's like at least, year minimum, usually 2. So yeah, that would suck. I feel for the guy.
Yeah.
Just amongst other things, that's just another kick in the head.
Yeah. I do, but I don't feel bad for that dude either, because I bet looking back now, he's kind of thankful that day sent him off so he couldn't be instigated and all of that. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
I mean, Pendleton and the rest of them have just been up to their armpits in this, Nobody believes them.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. And they went through, we'll talk about it here in a little bit, all the crap that they put those guys through.
Yeah.
Once all was said and done. So, okay, moving on. Some more incidents. The Steve Wagner incident happened on the 23rd of December, so this was beforehand. Went completely unreported. He witnessed a lighted object landing in the trees just outside the East Gate, literally within 20 yards. It landed right there. He waited, it flew off, and they peeked outside the gates, and he mentioned that he saw 3 divots where he thought landing gear had been. But it completely went unreported. It was, of course, one of those incidents where they were like, better to not say anything whatsoever. So that was on the 23rd. So we've already got situations happening before the big ones happen.
Really interested on that, just outside of that East Gate. That's where everything seems to be happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is
What
the
was
side
the
that
draw,
the forest is on.
What was the
It's the
draw?
side that the forest was on. So
Closest cover.
Yeah.
yeah. If you go out the other way, it was just a lot of open field and some buildings, and I think there was an old landing strip that wasn't being used anymore. Not a whole lot that way. And then you started getting into like neighborhood areas and stuff. So really, the forest area, I think, was probably, where all the cool happenings was. So we've got the Rick Bobo incident. This happened on the 27th. He had been working in the Bentwaters weapons storage area, main tower. He reported seeing a huge stationary UFO over the Bentwaters base, from which smaller objects emerged and descended into the forest. It hovered there for several hours. He also reported seeing a second, smaller UFO hovering over the forest close to the end of the RAF Bentwaters weapons storage area. And this was later reported by the guys in the tower, too. The guys in the tower kind of swooped in and saved some butts.
They did.
Right. He said it was there for several hours. That's not something you can just kind of I didn't actually see that.
Yeah.
Because everybody would have seen it if it was hanging out for that long.
Got a really good look at it, too.
Yeah. He did say that he felt like he was under scrutiny and that he may be in harm. And this is one of those topics that we keep coming back to. He was in charge of the weapons area, and a lot of people think that is why those UFOs were there, that they were checking out that area. It held a lot of, weaponry and stuff that actually wasn't supposed to be there. but it was.
Right.
I've got
Yeah.
that just as a refresh for everybody. I've got that overhead view of the area, kind of see where everything was. Because there's the east gate that we keep talking about. And over here, clear on the other side, is where they saw the craft actually land.
Yeah. Now, before we move on to the Larry Warrens, honky, before we hit there, I'm going to do a few of the civilian and other ones so you can kind of get a better idea. I mean, it wasn't just the people at the base experiencing all of this. There was a lot of others. Like I said, I'm not going to tell them all. I saw in just Gary Hasseltine's book, there was like 50 plus. But I put down the ones that I thought were a little bit more interesting or appropriate or kind of went with some of the other sightings that we've already been talking about. So they have one. A lot of these are unnamed because they did this anonymously or they just didn't think it was important enough to put a name with it. I have this one down as Unknown Farmer. This one happened December 29th. He had heard a very loud noise which had frightened his animals. Claimed his entire farm was then lit by a very bright white light. He called RAF Woodbridge, who sent out men to investigate. They were there for 4 hours. During that time, it was rumored that the UFO was found damaged and taken back to Woodbridge Base. And also were rumored there were translucent beings. And this is where we kind of start bridging in on some of Larry Warren stuff. But interesting.
Yeah, that is.
We have one from a forestry worker. He reported that a friend had reported to him that they had seen a UFO in the area, that they had seen a UFO in the same area that his team was felling trees right near the base. It was actually, I think it was just south of the landing site is where they were felling trees at that time. We have a couple from a farm. Were told by the couple that 2 men had shown up on January 1st to ask questions about the sightings in the area. We start getting into a lot of the Men in Black stuff here. We had a lot of the people in the area reported they had 2 weird men show up asking them all sorts of crazy questions that they didn't understand. There was also an unnamed civilian radar operator. So this is one of the outside civilian radar operators. He reported unknown flying objects on December 30th to RAF. And a few days later, USAF officers came in and confiscated all of his recorded tapes from that night.
Wow. Yeah.
They do.
Yeah. This one I thought was really cool. This guy is named Jerry Collins. And he was actually friends with a lot of the guys on the base. He had worked there as a civilian for a short time, kind of became friends with a lot of them, and he was having a drink with them at a local bar called the Swan. When that initial big night was going down, that second night with Colonel Holt and all that. And they got paged to get their butts back on the bases as fast as they could, so they threw their drink down and went running, and he decided to leave since his buddies were gone, and he climbed on his motorcycle and headed back. Well, his way back to home was back past that forested area, and he came up and was suddenly bathed in daylight. Said he looked up, and just 30 feet above him was a triangle so huge he could barely see the edges of it. Said it was completely black, just shining a beam of light down on him. I would have crapped myself. I don't know about you guys. So he said
That's where all the cow patties came from.
Yeah. And he said the most interesting thing about it was it looked like it was dripping molten lava in different colors. And he said as soon as he kind of realized what it was he was looking up at, it shot off with such an amount of speed he couldn't believe it. He actually decided not to say anything. He drove straight home and told his mother, who promptly told him he was drunk. So,
as mothers do.
Well,
yeah.
So the interesting thing is,
yeah. So the interesting thing is that he actually got to meet up with those friends again a few days later. And they kind of let him in on a little secret. They were like, "Don't tell anybody." But he said when they got back to the base that night, they were told to grab up their guard dogs. They were part of the crew that had the guard dogs with them, and go out to the landing site. But the dogs refused to move, and they couldn't get them to go into the area. So one of them got charged with taking all the dogs back. And the other 3 went in, and they claimed that there was some sort of a force field up around this particular ship because they couldn't get stepped past a certain area to get to it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is pretty wild.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if the dogs aren't going, I'm not going.
No, hell no.
No,
Yeah.
Dogs are smarter than we are sometimes.
they are. For sure.
Yeah. And the other reports I had, and I'm not going to go into them all because it's basically the ones we've already been hearing, were all from the Suffolk police, who initially told everyone, including the papers and the media, that all of it was silliness. They even said that the divots from the landing gear were just animal holes. All of them later on in years recanted all of that, I think once they were not police there anymore, and went into great detail. And a lot of it is just very true to the stories that we've already heard. So there's really no point in retelling all that again. But so even the local police were in on it. In fact, if I remember correctly, when I read through all the transcripts of Colonel Holt's audio, and at one point, because they list the background noises that's happening, and at one point you see in little parentheses it says bee boo, bee boo, bee boo, bee boo, and written after that in italics it says the bobbies were there.
Oh, yeah.
It was the sound of their sirens in the background.
Irons, yeah.
The wee
So,
woos.
yeah, the Suffolk police initially said they weren't even out there, and then when they were drug out there, it was just animal holes, and they're full of ridiculousness, and none of that happened. Meanwhile, they were there so much that they picked up on Colonel Holt's audio. So, there's your proof. Yeah, it did. It says bee boo, bee boo, bee boo, bee boo. I was like, what the hell is a bee boo? Oh, it's the bobbies.
Yeah. That's funny. Oh my goodness.
It is. So, back to the last one that I was talking about, Larry Warren's.
Oh boy.
Where do we want to start?
I'll jump in on this part. Larry Warren kind of popped up on the scene mid 90s when author Peter Robbins was writing a book about the Rendlesham incident and all that stuff, which he did publish with Larry Warren's help, because Larry Warren kind of popped up out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I know all about Rendlesham. I was there. And I had all this story. And the book is called Left at East Gate. And you can buy it on Amazon right now if you care to. But maybe not after I finish my story. But Larry's story is that on that third night or third incident, that he was security forces, just like a lot of the other people that we've heard from, but his story is radically different than everybody else's. His story is that they all went out into the forest area. There's a clearing where there was this thick fog forming on the ground. I don't recall him saying it was yellow or not, which we talked about last week, but just this thick fog bank over a part of a field next to the trees. And there were all kinds of people out there. There were so many people that they couldn't fit all their vehicles along the little dirt road area going out there, where they're having to park off into ditches and stuff like that, where they're hauling lighting equipment. He said there were a bunch of people from the public affairs office, which on an Air Force base, that's who does all of the filming and publications of stuff like that to be released to the public, and just documenting any kind of like a mishap scene or something like that, something big. But he said they were all out there with all their film equipment and cameras and lights all over the place, taking pictures everywhere. And suddenly, in a burst of light, a gigantic pyramid-shaped craft appeared over that fog bank area that was forming out in the field. Doorway opened up. I think it was 3 or 4 of these tall, lanky, kind of semi-translucent, glowing creatures came out and supposedly met with the colonel out there. There's like a famous picture of the story where they're like shaking hands with the aliens and stuff like that. And then they basically, these aliens just start wandering around the scene, and he said that they were. He's specific again. I don't know why light dolls get all this play and how great they were and key to everything at Rendlesham. But he mentions that one of them went up to one of the light dolls and is looking at it and kind of like stuck their face like through the side of the unit to like look inside, like it phased through it. And later described a terrified young security forces person that was in their truck just horrified, and one of the aliens walked up and stuck its face through the windshield, like phased through the glass on the windshield to look at this guy, which of course his natural reaction was to pull his weapon and start shooting.
That would be my first response. And
Nice. We are a highfalutin production.
And just to point out, that did have an orange piece on the end of it. Sure. It is fake. It is a toy.
This is a toy.
Yeah.
Pew pew.
Pew pew.
But so there's a few other little tidbits with his story that kind of went on like that. But of course, Peter Robbins, and I actually forwarded Jess the video. They went out to the site where they're walking around. He's like, yeah, this happened over here. Colonel such and such was there. Sergeant such and so is over that way. And this is where this is. But, there's nothing but trees. Oh, you see these stumps? That was a big tree. Was here back a few years ago, blah, 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 blah. Very detailed story. And when in that video that I said, it very sure of that story. It wasn't like he was kind of making stuff up on the fly or anything like that. So he's either very good at telling a story or it really happened. But as years would go on, Peter Robbins, the author of the leftist, East Gate book, along with Larry, started having some issues. He started having issues with Larry. Larry was becoming more demanding and demanding more money from the books and appearances and all this other stuff. And 2 years ago now, Peter Robbins, the original author, came out and made this giant post on his website saying, I can't hold it in anymore. I'm cutting ties with Larry Warren. He's full of crap. All of the story's crap. All of it was a lie. All of it was BS. He got too greedy. He was bilking me for money when he didn't, he's got the story, but I'm doing all the legwork and creating the books and all this other stuff. And he's trying to rip me up. Now it's my problem, kind of a thing. So he certainly caught a lot of crap for that. There's always high production here. We spare most expense.
Chelsea said, loving the prop work. Are we going to start getting reenactments? Lord, I hope not. We'll all probably hurt ourselves. I'll fall out of my chair.
Every morning.
Meanwhile, Toadie's totally making fun of me. Did you see?
Bee-boo.
Bee-boo.
You sounded funny saying bee-boo, bee-boo.
Hey,
my bee-boos are awesome.
That's right. I felt like I was there. I thought I was in England.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, that's some real stuff there.
What was the outcome of all of this? He came out and said that Larry Warren's full of crap.
That Larry Warren was a big giant grifter, that he had because once the book was released and all these other people that have kind of put their necks out there, all of them were, including Colonel Halt. He's like, that's all bullshit. None of that stuff happened. He's crazy.
In fact, in Gary Hesseltine's book, he does a really good job of like kind of tracking everything that Larry has ever kind of posted or put in a book and backtracking on it and looking at, kind of the conjecture of it, was he there or was he not? And really it comes down to like a couple of people said they thought they saw him there, but couldn't be certain. They didn't, they just thought it was, oh, that must have been that one young kid that I ran past. Because he was only like 19 at the time.
Right. Because he was physically there at the base when the event occurred.
Base. But whether he was in the mix like he said he was.
Well, from what he described, when, creepy, glowy aliens are sticking their faces through windows and scaring people, that there would have had to have been a lot of people out there, a lot more than just, a couple security people. And then a couple of days later, the colonel decides to go out there and look around when, there's some weird lights, floating around the woods. This is a much larger production where you would have had so many more people that would have been available as witnesses that once, because usually, once a couple people come forward, you might get a trickle more, but all with the exception of the colonel, which the vice, base commander, and a dozen, we'll say a dozen security forces people that were talking on the radio or actually out in the field, or a couple people in the tower. Nobody else was around or made any other comments as far as like, well, that's not true. We have, you talked about the aircraft maintenance guy earlier, but for the most part, if there were people involved with that big of a production where giant pyramid shaped craft and people are, beings are walking around and doing party tricks and stuff like that.
There's a lot going on.
That's a lot
Yeah.
for everyone to keep that under their hat. So the general consensus in the community is Larry Warren is full of crap and was just trying to make it, he heard everybody else was, getting book deals and, becoming popular and famous, and he wanted his 10 minutes of fame as well. And I saw the whole thing. I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so just a heads up, if you at home or anyone who's listening, you want to do a little research on it, hit some books. Let me tell you, there's plenty of books to choose from.
Sure.
But if it's got Larry Warren's attached to it, I might steer clear.
Yeah.
Steer a little clear of that. Just, I'm not implying there isn't aliens, and I'm not implying that there maybe that there were not aliens there, but nobody knows. And his is the only testimony that does not match up to anyone else's.
Not any close.
Yeah, and he came out so flippin' late with it that
He did.
Yeah.
Ian said something about that surname Warren.
Oh yeah, it makes you a little itchy, doesn't it? It's a little itchy. Yeah. All right. So let's move away from old Larry dog.
Oh, Larry.
Let's get away from him.
He's like Doug and Dave.
So, like I said, there was a few sightings, a few happenings on the base leading up to that, but I'm going to go over those a little bit later because they're not huge incidents and they kind of match up to what we've already heard. So rather than bear repeating it, if we have a little time towards the end of it, I might go back and hit a few of those so you can kind of get a general idea of what was happening in the area. But really quick, before we move on to like the crazy stuff, like the interrogations and everything that they went through with the reports and everything, I just want to hit really quick before we leave the ships themselves, the UFOs. So while Colonel Holt and the rest of them were down in there, they took a butt ton of soil samples from inside the landing area and from outside at varying distance to keep it, to get good base samples to see if there was any difference in this dirt. And there totally was. And I wrote down what I thought was really pertinent, and I'm going to read it out to you three and see if anything sounds familiar.
I already know where you're going.
Okay. So, in the soil samples they tested, they found extraordinarily high amounts of silica. They also found out that the dirt had turned hydrophobic, and that just means that it no longer takes on water. So rather than it's soaking up water when it hits it, it actually beads up and falls away. Yeah. Right? They also found out that under the microscope that the soil had actually changed its texture completely. Rather than being little broken up pieces of sand and dirt and, refuse from the trees, they had beat it up themselves. They were little balls of hard dirt and had undergone a pigment change because there was now so much iron pumped into it. It had become a red color. Just full of iron and silica. Is any of this sounding familiar yet? They also did microbial tests. They found there was extraordinarily high levels of sterility inside. Most of the microbes were gone. And they actually did a plant test on them over the next year. They put plants in the outside soils and the inside soils. And the outside soils grew just fine. But the plants that grew in this soil, they did grow, but they grew poorly, they were discolored, they were stunted in their growth, and they had mild deformities. Yeah.
Kind of like my face.
Kind of like crop circles.
Kind of, a lot like. I guess
A
I said
lot
that
like crop circles.
The microgranules.
Oh.
The silica, yeah, the repelling the water, yeah.
Yeah. So I went.
Crop circles is where you were going to go with that?
Yeah.
I was going to go to the Delphos UFO incident.
I could see that too because there was such a change.
Yeah, and there was a lot of stuff similar to the Delphos incident.
There was.
Yes.
In fact, the size of the craft would be comparable to what the Delphos thing was. And that was around the time we were talking about that flap last year at the UFO day. That was all in that same area, and they were all talking about a craft or organism about the size of what they were talking about at Rendlesham.
And it was sloughing off the matter that was falling to the ground. That was very reminiscent of Delphos as well.
And chasing.
Yeah.
The incidents around that area in central Kansas, a lot of them revolve around the light chasing the locals around like it was playing. So it's very similar to our own Delphos and UFO flap in central Kansas. That's very interesting, actually.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
So
that's immediately where I went to, because they did the same soil samples, which the same results where nothing grew in it, and just right outside of it, stuff actually grew crazy. So
yeah. So what I was getting at. So I went to BLT Research. That's the big research group that takes care of all of the major crop circle investigations in the whole world. They started years ago gathering all the information and looking at sites. And I was looking at the levels that they find in their dirt from the crop circle soil samples. And it's nearly exactly the same, even in the levels. 0.0008.
That is really crazy.
Yeah. And just to let you all know at home, I mean, one day we're probably going to do a whole crop circle show to let you know how that works. But the reason why the true crop circles are so beautiful when you look at them from the top, why they look like they almost move, is because all of those blades of grass or crops or whatever it was made on top of is covered in that really thin sheen of silica. And it makes it shine. It makes it really pretty. So even the silica was there, and the iron ore, and the weird microbial tests, and, I just think it's so exciting.
That is pretty cool.
It's a pretty good correlation, for sure.
And it's strange that these same things are found in lots of different sightings besides crop circles. So that is an interesting correlation.
It is. All right, so what do we want to talk about next? Where are we going to go? Do we want to do like the...
I was going to make a crop circle in England. That's impossible. Kind of a thing, but
that's just Doug and Dave. Are they still doing those?
Oh yeah, couple old guys with a board or rope.
They ripped it over
Holidays.
there, and yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the
Being
East? Okay, let's do it.
separate places in the country, hours apart at the same time.
Yeah,
I was
well, pretty
very,
spry.
very impressive. Well, fast cars, really fast cars.
Craziness. It's pretty
All right,
fascinating, though. We do need to do a crop circle show.
We do eventually. Let's talk about the guys having to go in and make reports and all the disinformation and all the stuff that they said that they actually had to go through. Some of them went through some pretty nasty interrogations. So, does anybody want to elaborate on that, or do you want me to go a little bit?
Go right ahead.
Okay. So, the first one we really hear about, besides Holt, is Peniston. He's the one that really came forward with a lot of it. The next day after his initial one happened, he was brought in for like a debriefing, kind of. He was brought into a room with a couple of guys and said, we want you to take these pieces of paper and this pencil, and we want you to write down your entire experience, every incident, every detail you can think of from the minute it started all the way through till you got back to the base. And I think he said he filled like 4 pages front and back. They came in, they were like, are you sure this is what it was? And he was like, yeah. And they said, sign it. So he signed it, and then they turned around and handed him another slip of paper and said, now, this is what you're going to say happened. And it was a very condensed version, some of his stuff, but basically a condensed, very watered down. I went out and looked, this and this and this. I came back, and that was it. And they were like, sign it. So he signed it because he was threatened. They were like, it would be terrible for you to lose your job. Other people had reported that had gone out, that they were interrogated, and that pentothal was involved.
Sodium pentothal.
To make sure that they got the truth out of them. Several men reportedly away from each other, not knowing each other, all said that it was stated to them that bullets were cheap. That's another fun one. Even Colonel Holt, who was very excited about the entire situation, he was like, we need to get on this. We need to get all the information. We need to get it down. Even he was deferred and was like, I think we're going to take some of this stuff here, and you're not going to be talking about this here. And that never happened. And things just started getting mixed. And this is where we start getting into the conspiracy theories. Why were they making sure that this information was not going to leave the base? Stuff went out to the media saying, this is what it wasn't what you're thinking, this is what you're going to put in the papers, this is what you're going to put in the magazines, this is what you're going to put on air. Like I said before, the radio towers, the civilian ones, their tapes were removed. Stuff was taken away. The police, I'm pretty sure, were talked to about what they could and couldn't say, and that's why suddenly they hadn't been there at all.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
I don't know, do you guys want to elaborate on that?
Very typical of this sort of a thing. And all the people that got sent off so fast, that's simply because they did not want British government investigators talking to them, in my opinion.
And that's usually a good excuse for spiriting people out of the country back home to the U.S. Rather quickly for a whole host of different reasons.
Security,
whatever. Sure. The other, there's for me, like I'm sure Colonel Holt's position on all of this was, hey, these could be like Russians doing something weird around one of our nuke bases. That's why we need to investigate this. We need to, no matter where the trail goes, if it's little green men or if it's, Russians doing this, we need to figure it out. And to be completely stonewalled and said, no, that's not what you saw at all. Here's what you really saw. Sign it, kind of a thing. It's like, okay, what are we covering up? Are we covering up possible alien incursions around a nuclear site? Or are we covering up that Russian, evil Russians during the Cold War came and made us look stupid by running around chasing our tails for a few nights on Christmas night.
Well,
Kind of
and
a
even
deal.
if it was Russian, they would have covered it up just as hard, because the breach in security would be political nightmare
It would be.
for everybody involved.
It would be.
So
It's a good point. I could see him. Okay, is it Russian or is it alien? Oh, it's alien. So yeah, thank goodness. But
For the mindset back there, they would prefer it be aliens than
alien,
over
yeah,
it being
for
Russian.
sure.
absolutely.
And I could see that. It makes sense.
Yeah, aliens would be a whole lot easier for the Pentagon politically than the Russians got this close to our bases and were snooping around. Which makes you wonder if it wasn't a spy operation and they went through all this circus to cover it up. That's entirely possible too.
Mhm.
I don't know what the December 1980 technology would have been to have reproduced some of the things that were reported. Russian or American or anybody else. There's some pretty unusual things going on out in those woods, and that were cited, all around for, as Jess pointed out, for days ahead and even weeks afterwards.
Right.
So this actually, the entire event, the grand scope of it went on for weeks
Or longer.
Or much longer that we know of. So if this was some kind of like Russian incursion with the most super advanced 1980 version of a drone with wacky lights on it and spitting out yellow fog or whatever else was going on, I don't see that as being a possibility. I mean, if it was just people sneaking around in the bushes and causing distractions for the guards, that's spycraft 101, kind of messing with the enemy kind of a thing, but not lights and discs and stuff like that flying around. Today you could probably get, I mean, it's not like there haven't been reports of drones flying all over the place the last few years.
That's true.
Doing weird things, but that's only the last couple of years, not 1980.
No, and that gets you back into what was that yellow fog? Was it a hallucinogen?
Burroughs goes on to think that, like a couple of years ago, he seems to think that there might have been some type of mind play at work somewhere in there.
Could have been
from the military, our own military side, not Russians with canisters of Joker gas spraying them over the base or anything like that, making people see hallucinations and weird stuff.
If you think about the fact it was the B team that was there, who would be less likely to be a problem if something went awry.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right.
It's true. And like I said, I was just playing devil's advocate, but there's somewhat plausible explanations as far as they're concerned. That would have been easier. Part of my point is it would have been easier for them to come out with some of these. Oh, it was Russian spies with hallucinogenic gas trying to get our nukes that weren't there.
Speaking of that, Ian, I have it up on the screen right here. His favorite conspiracy is that UK Special Forces played a practical joke with a lunar module that was being used for trading purposes. Ridiculous, but hilarious.
Yep, the Apollo capsule story. Yeah.
Pretty good one.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the pyramid-shaped ship that they saw. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be huge, though. That was not a very big.
It was not that large.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. I wrote down a whole bunch of the theories that I'd kind of run across, and all of them are just dumb. they'll all explain like one little bit of an incident, but they can't explain the whole incident or the rest
All
of
of it,
them.
right.
So I don't know why they would even bring them forth. There's like that ridiculous one, like it was space debris, or they were messing around with an old Apollo module. There was it was a Soviet or East German secret prototype aircraft that they were testing in the area. That was a lot of them then. There was a lot of them.
Never to be seen or heard from or used in combat anywhere ever again.
Yeah. Holographic projections that they were pumping that yellow gas in there, basically like LSD gas, and were pumping holograms in to test it out and see what they would do.
Mind control, Joker gas, and Project Bluebeam. We've crossed the streams already.
Yes, yes. I love Nick Redfern's idea. Now, I like Nick Redfern as a researcher and a writer, but even his is a little convoluted. He is sure that it's all about holograms and weaponized ball lightning. That they figured out how to control ball lightning and create it, and that they were out there testing it, and that's what those red orange balls was ball lightning.
That just doesn't really hold water, because if we had that technology, we would have heard about it.
We'd be using it for sure.
If you had that in 1980, you're not going to test it around an overseas nuclear base.
No, you would have been in White Sands or someplace like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But Redfern says that they tested it on purpose with the disinformation that it was a UFO to see how widely they could get the story to spread, to see if they could use it later on in other incidences, like when they were at war, if they could recreate something and make them believe one thing when it's something else completely. It was just a little... I mean, not saying that our government hasn't done some shitty things.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they have.
I got a list.
This one's a little far-fetched for me.
I have up on the screen, this is a recreation that sets at Rendlesham now that people can actually go visit. It's almost shaped like a conquistador's helmet. Bit.
Those aren't hieroglyphs on the side of them. Yeah.
Another one I found was that the British were testing LSD and some other drugs, and they were the ones pumping it into the US.
Hold it up there, Enzo, and I'll pull it back up. I got excited and hit the wrong button. Hang on. It's not far off.
Kind of, yeah.
A little bit.
You touch it, you will receive a download.
Little hieroglyphic looking markings on it there. There you go.
Yeah.
Ready to go for the rest of the story. I'll put this on for the download portion.
There you go. My favorite one is that they were not alien beings, but they were humans from the future that had come back.
What?
They were time travelers. Yeah.
Where could you possibly have gotten that idea from?
I can't imagine. Yeah. That one was one of my favorites. It's so convoluted and hilarious.
There was no blue boxes seen, though. I don't understand. Where was the blue box that's bigger on the inside?
I know. But that is a lot of the theories. There's also another... I don't want to say theory because it was put forward by some of the personnel that were on the base. At the point when the whistleblowers were coming forth and they were kind of laying out, I reported this or this never got reported, a good handful of gentlemen came up that were from the police side of things on the base. And they claimed that they were told that they were supposed to talk about it being a UFO and an alien because they wanted people to think that it was something as ridiculous as a UFO. Meanwhile, it was something else entirely, and that they were never let in on the secret of what that other thing was. So that is there in the background too. There's a handful of guys saying, "Hey, we were told to tell them this, that it was UFOs."
And said, "I urge caution when touching Enzo's helmet." That's hilarious.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because if they can put the spin on it, it's just this crazy alien story,
Yeah.
they can sweep it under the rug and move on.
It is.
Yeah,
I
it's got the
think
giggle
we're
factor with it,
attempting
and everybody
yeah.
was like, it's UFOs.
Yeah.
Yes, they were all working Christmas night, and they had a little Christmas cheer while they were working.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can actually see them using it like after the fact, like after they realized that the story wasn't going to go away. They were like, "Oh yeah, just lean into it." Then they'll really think that it's just silly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, very well could have been.
I mean,
So
that works too.
yeah.
Which was certainly the mindset back in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, especially back then. Good lord. Anytime anything UFO related came on the news, you got like the creepy music and the little gray alien waving in the background. So ridiculous. I'm so glad we live in the times we do, where this stuff is a little bit more readily accepted and talked about at least.
A little more readily accepted. Well, I won't go as far as to say people.
No, not completely accepted, but at least you're not completely thrown in the locker.
You don't have to read the book with your flashlight under the blankets, making sure nobody else sees what you're reading.
Fancy sport coat that the sleeves tie in the back.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me put it this way: the little kids' paranormal books are no longer in the sci-fi section.
Yeah,
that right there.
That's huge.
Because I remember having to go and get my paranormal and Bigfoot books and stuff like that, and you had to go to the sci-fi fiction section to get them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So there's that. We're moving up a little. All right. So we've gone over all the crazy theories about what it was. Enzo, did you want to talk about the binary code and Pendleton's notebook? Because this is a whole nother side of things.
Yeah.
This is, I thought that was the lead in when you said, hey, it's from the far future.
Kinda. It could be part of that.
From the distant past.
Do a share screen here, and we'll just dive into it.
Oh, sorry. I'm like, where's the screen? Jesus. Sorry.
Well, we'll get into. Oh, I've lost my place. I'm all over the place. Okay, here we go.
We can't take him anywhere.
If anyone wants to investigate this themselves, all of this stuff is on the Rendlesham Forest Incident.com, where they have all the pages of the notebook that has all the binary stuff in it. I think it's 16 pages.
We need to tell them a little bit of background on that. We didn't really touch on that. Well, I'll just do it really fast. While Peniston went in for his first view of the craft, we told you he kind of got up close to it. He claimed at that time, I didn't mention it then because I didn't want to have to get into this so fast because it's a lot. He claimed that on the edges of the craft was this kind of markings that looked almost Egyptian and almost Chinese at the same time. And he said he touched these and that he felt like he got a download of information. It kind of buzzed through his body like he was holding on to an electric fence. And the next day, he grabbed his notebook and, he had, there's the pictures of the symbols he copied down that night when he was looking at them. That night, he'd had some kind of a dream about it, and he picked his notebook up and started writing ones and zeros, which he later found out, not at the time, was a binary code. So he has this in his notebook. He actually hid them away for quite a while. He didn't show them to anybody on base, so no one was knowledgeable about it but him, and it didn't come out until much later. So this is what Enzo is going to be talking about.
Yeah, the as just pointed out, the date on here, 28 December 1980, and then it goes on for 16 pages. And you may wonder, why would this guy still have this old ass notebook? Well, the truth is, I still have one of my little notebooks that I've held on to all the years. And this was standard equipment. This one's a little different from his. His actually has little ring binders, something fancy, not like the cheap, crappy one that I have. But this is like one of three, which has all of my old PDY information and travel times and locations and little notes and stuff like that, where, just years and years and stuff. This is a trip I went on back in 1998. Went from to Seymour Johnson in North Carolina, then to Maine, then to Spain, then into the Azores and all that. Travel all over. But anyways, so it is possible you would hang on to these things. And this is, I always get his name wrong. This is John Burroughs. This is his stuff. Keep skipping ahead. John, in like the early 2000s, kind of came when he had already talked a little bit about this stuff. He talked about the things we had already discussed of going out and seeing the craft and touching it and feeling kind of weird and all that. But that's kind of, and then they had like missing time where everybody was looking for him for like 45 minutes and all of that. So we had already kind of heard that from Mr. Burroughs, but I don't have the actual date of when it all started, but basically he was getting a little older. He'd been retired for a while, and he did not have access to his own medical records from while he was in his military. It was considered classified secret, and he didn't have access to it, his own medical records. And he was concerned about, I don't know what this thing did to me and what kind of health effects it might affect me later on. And they did detect, above normal levels of radiation in that area. So he wanted all that stuff on the record so that if he came down with like cancer years later, he would be able to hold this up. And it's like, it's probably from this, which happened while I was on duty, which means the Veterans Administration needs to pay for everything.
Yeah.
Because that's very expensive. But they wouldn't release it to him. And he ended up having to get Senator John McCain actually ended up getting involved where they did release his stuff. And actually have some of the stuff in there when it was finally declassified, granted, where after the incident, Burroughs developed a severe, previously non-existent heart murmur and eye issues. Dr. Kit Green, who went through all of his records and stuff like that, identified that the cause of the injuries were likely due to, quote, broadband non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation, end quote. The outcome of the physical exams and then saying, hey, you got to release this stuff, is in 2015, the VA granted disability compensation for injury sustained during this incident. They directly tied it back to what was going on with that. And, it was what was preventing him from getting the medical care he needed by this stuff being classified. So now, like in the 2015 timeframe, where someone was doing a story on him and had him in the interview, and they went through the whole story, and he had his little notebook with him where it's like, yeah, you got pictures in there. It's like, yeah, here's the pictures. And somebody noticed while he was flipping through it that he had all these pages and pages and pages of binary code. And they're like, what's all that? He's like, sheepishly said, that's from the download that I got when I touched it. And as Jess said, a couple days later, his head's just buzzing with this stuff, just going over and over in his head. And he found out when he started writing it down, he started feeling better. And the more he wrote, the better he felt, until he got to the point where that's it. It's done. Buzzing in his head's kind of gone away. He felt way better. He closed the book back in 1980. And it's like, I'm done with this, and
Yeah,
threw it
no
on the through it, back in 1980. It's like all that. Well, then, of course, years later, the stories came out, and he came forward with at least part of the story. And then, while being at this interview, after his medical records were released to him, they see this and they're like, "What is that?" Now, December of 1980, he didn't even know what the word download meant, much less what a bunch of ones and zeros meant. No, probably no. Most people didn't back in 1980. So they went to an expert and had it all decoded. It turns out it was all in English, in ASCII format, which is the binary, turning it into each individual letter. And this is too zoomed in. Basically, this is what the 16 pages came out. Reading up here at the top, and you'll notice different colors here. The gentleman, the computer programmer guy that decoded all of this. Some of these colors, because this is his original product, when he originally released it to him after decoding all of it, is some of the red stuff he just put as is. It doesn't make sense in English. And there were others that were close. So he just those are what the green ones are. But all the blue stuff, which is most of it, is the actual straight one-to-one translation. But it all reads super weird. Our first line says, exploration of humanity, 666, 8100. Then it gives what it turns out, which it took them a while to figure this out, that all, what all these numbers were, because it was, there's no decimals in, the whole setup. So it took them a while to figure out, oh, wait a minute. These are like map coordinates.
Coordinates, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, these are basically GPS type coordinates, your north and north, south, east, west type coordinates. So he punches that in. You got this set of coordinates, and we'll go over what all these coordinates are. Continuous for planetary advance, maybe advancement. That's where those read advance something. Fourth coordinate, continuous something before, and then a whole series of more coordinates, and then eyes of your eyes, origin, and it gives the same number that is up here at the top, origin year 8100. That time travel thing we were talking about.
Yeah.
That's what it decoded as. Origin year 8100. Now, let's take a closer look at some of these coordinates. This first one in the larger group, we'll do that one first. Caracol, Belize, which is where there's a huge Mayan temples and stuff like that. They're one of the bigger cities of the ancient world in North America is there. The next one is Sedona, Arizona.
The
next one is right on top of the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. The next one is right in the middle of the Nazca lines in Peru. The next one is the Tai Chao Ku complex mountain set in China, which is very similar to like Sedona, Arizona, where it's one of those places which for thousands of years, people have gone there to meditate and supposedly, reach a higher level of consciousness. It was actually traditional for leaders in China to make like kind of a pilgrimage there, especially if there were like war or something like that, where they needed to concentrate and think about it, would go there to these places and meditate. And beautiful place. It's actually a series of different mountains and all clustered together. One of them has like several, like 100 stone steps going up to. It's all very beautiful, very revered in there. And that last one there centers on the Temple of Apollo in Greece.
Wow.
Now, the one that's in here twice, up here at the very top and the very bottom, where it says origin in this place, comes to a little place out in the middle of the ocean out here, west of Ireland. Well, there's nothing out there. It's just open water. However, if you look at some ancient maps, it does come very close to the very famous disappearing island of High Brazil. Is it Brazil? It's not Brazil, is it? Or is it Brasil?
I think it's Brasil. If I remember
We'll
right.
say Brasil. And that's even what it's labeled at here in this one, where it's this legendary island. Like that, this particular map that shows Ireland here and then Brasil out here is from 1436. And people would going on their adventures out of the ocean. Sometimes it would be there, sometimes it wouldn't. Lots of stories and fables about High Brasil is mysterious island with wizards in it, uncloaked in a fog bank all the time, and mystical stuff going on there. Maybe
It's at Atlantis.
maybe is it Irish Atlantis? I don't know. But as it turns out, in this spot very close to these actual coordinates, because one of the things about Brasil that it was described as, it was considered to be a round island with like a channel that ran right through the middle of it. So it was kind of like two halves of a circle.
Mhm.
And as it turns out, using Google Maps here, if you zoom in, there are a couple of mountain ranges here and here that, if we look at this one a little to the north, is kind of round. It does appear to have a channel of some type or gouge or something in the middle of it.
Something, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not very deep here. It's only a few hundred meters deep. So that would be pretty close to where that still would have been. And of course, going back, 12,000 years, most of this whole area around England was what was called Doggerland, which all of this stuff was above the waterline.
Yep, everywhere where you see it light. You can even see the rivers down here in the
Yeah,
on
that's
the
pretty
edges.
cool.
The river delta.
Yeah, it's pretty in depth. Some of this stuff you can see here. So this being, where it could be, is what basically that's what's in that that explanation of what this all means. So does that mean, nothing against Mr. Burroughs, but he seems like a nice man. I've watched him on many interviews, and I believe his story. This is like a second half, more recent edition. The whole, notebooks, his own version of the notebook game. It's all in binary. Takes a while to compute it all out, but it pays off.
Yeah.
Where apparently this is the message he got by touching that craft, that weird triangular kind of craft, that the exploration of humanity, continuous for planetary advance, fourth coordinate continuous as something before, eyes of your eyes, and then the origin of High Brazil, and origin year 8,100.
Yeah.
What do we think about that, panel?
Well, just playing advocate, there's a lot of people that are against this. They're like, he came out with it so late. It wasn't in his notebook before. He did say in the book that he wrote that he had actually, after he wrote it, he was kind of embarrassed by it because, who even knew what that was back then. He actually took the pages out of his notebook. He said he pinned them together and put them in the drawer by his bed on his nightstand and just kind of forgot about it for a while because he was sure that if they didn't think he was nuts already, they were that was going to do him in.
Right.
Another thing I want to say is a lot of people say, well, there's obvious mistakes in it. If this was some higher being download, wouldn't it be perfect? Well, it was a human trying to listen to this weird code coming through his head and get it written down correctly. Those very well could be his mistakes.
When was and it was in ASCII, right?
Yes, in 7-bit format, which 8-bit became popular later on. But for the time, 7-bit would have been kind of normal. It was around that same year that IBM started doing everything in 8-bit, and that kind of set the standard for the industry after that.
Gotcha.
So for the time, that would have been the correct use of it.
Interesting.
So basically every go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't know if it's real or not, but I think there's so much interesting to this and ways to kind of prove that he couldn't have just faked it. I do know they looked at the rest of the notebook and it was right on par for the type of writing instrument that he was using at the time. All throughout the book, it all matched. So it wasn't as if he wrote it later on in the 90s and then shuffled it back in there. Like, I'm going to add this new...
Right.
Yeah,
the paper
it was
match,
all
the ink match.
the same. Yeah, the pressure of the writing, his style of writing at the time, it all matched. Because your writing changes over the years. You will never write the same way you did when you were 18.
I certainly don't.
Yeah, so
I can't write any. I wrote poorly before. I can't write anything now that everything's in a computer keyboard.
That's funny.
I can't even type, so I mean.
So this is to me, this is like the superest, weirdest part of the whole thing. That this is somehow some bizarre message from the future or from a craft from the future, listing out coordinates of famous ancient sites.
And it's cool that he did figure out, that it was coordinates because the decimals weren't in there.
Because cause the guy who deciphered all of this, of course, every like I said, it was all 7-bit. Every number here it is, just typed out. So if people want to, you can actually take all this stuff and figure it out yourself. But every 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then there's 8. So maybe he did do it 8-bit because it does kind of look like it's grouped in 8s. But each one of these sets of 8 numbers is one letter. So you had to do that to make the entire message.
That's awfully tedious.
Yeah, very tedious.
Extremely. I don't know, man. That's wild. It's one of those, you kind of hope it's real because it's cool.
I know. It's super strange.
Yeah.
But this website where all this stuff is at does have like links to practically everything that's that we've talked about here. I think I'll zoom out a little bit. But there's coordinates. Like this is one of the site in China, shows exactly where it's at. Some of the stuff that's around there. Look at this. Look at these stairs.
Wow.
The stairs of death.
No, you get all the way to the top and slip on the banana peel. And
that would be me.
Yeah, that would be
I
be
wouldn't even make it to the top, buddy.
But
Fat
each one of these
had a heart attack on steps in China.
But each one of these has a link to the Google Maps version of it, of the actual coordinates. So you can see it's spaced right around all of those buildings. And when you zoom out, where it is in China.
Wow.
So it's pretty slick. Whoever put all that info on the site, it's kind of got all the evidence out there for if you want to look at it yourself, you can do your own research.
Ian said, I'm glad I don't have to write in binary. That would be awfully tiring, wouldn't it? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, English is bad enough.
All right. Well, there's the
There you go.
binary code. I don't think it gets any weirder.
No,
That's pretty weird.
that's wild.
Yeah. So to end
Eyes
out
of your eyes.
Rendlesham.
There's something about that.
Yeah.
That eyes of your eyes. It's kind of creepy. Kind of
It
weirds
is.
me out
Very
a little.
creepy.
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Eyes of your eyes.
And what was it? Exploration of the human.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it said now.
Yeah.
Exploration of human something.
It's crazy.
It's almost like, this is the reason we're here.
Continuous for planetary advance.
Yeah.
Exploration of humanity. 666-8100. Now 8100 matches the origin year at the very end, but I don't know what I don't know in context what 666 means to this, but
Well, a lot of the times it's not meant as, like the demonic number, but it's also meant as the end of days. Is 8100 when the world ends and they've come back to like figure out how to keep it going or to change something? Or...
yeah, I guess that's, what's the message here that was imparted to this guy that, hey, there's all these ancient sites across the planet. I don't know what the hell does creepy eyes of your eyes mean.
I don't know. I don't know. But to end out, so let's end out Rendlesham because we're coming down to the end here. I'm not going to go over those 3 things that happened prior, but I will let you know they all happened in 1980. Throughout that year, each incident was pretty much like the ones we talked about. Orange, reddish, glowing balls about the size of a basketball or a beach ball, seeing them very near the east gates. The last one that happened in November, though, I thought was very interesting. This gentleman never reported it, but kind of kept in touch with his buddies who also witnessed it with him. They saw a triangle craft come out just down outside the east gate, and after it lifted off, they went out and looked and they didn't report it. They wrote down in their journals that they saw 3 deep divots in the ground, 12 feet apart. And this is where we see this, and I will also add later on back in like the 80s or not the 80s, in the early 90s, Bryant Gumbel did a special on Rendlesham. It's pretty funny. It's a Bryant Gumbel all the way. But it's the first time that they brought Colonel Holt and Pendleton together for the very first time, and they took them out to where it happened at and said, show us what you're talking about. And Holt went one way and Pendleton went the other. And Holt was like, where are you going? And he goes, I'm going to the landing area. And he goes, no, the landing area is over here. And he's like, uh-oh, we got a problem. And Pendleton went back through all of his research and showed him that where he was going was the actual landing site. And we find out that Colonel Holt and the others actually found a new site.
Oh.
They were 2 different ones.
Wild.
Wow.
And there was a third one right by the east gate that no one knew about except for that handful of security officers that decided not to report it back in November.
Huh.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And the ground was
Rendlesham.
frozen too at the time. It was Christmas. It was the end of the year. It was wintertime. And the divots that got left, they would have been a fairly hefty, craft.
Yeah. They claimed that they would have been like 7 or 8 tons worth of
Yeah,
weight
something like
to
that.
create those kind of divots. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm going to take a break from reading.
If you want to
for-
go down a huge rabbit hole, Rendlesham, it's a fantastic one. And it's held on for so long because of the type of witnesses that were involved, and there was so much information on it.
Yes. And I will of course, like I always do, post all of our reference books and with links on all of them so you can go and get your own copies if you're interested. There's so many books, like we could have just kept going.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Ginny Randalls wrote an entire book on it. I would have loved gotten a hold of that. Although she had weird ideas on what it was too.
She did. Yeah.
So I don't know. All right.
That's the
Are we
sound of
ready?
it.
I think we are ready.
Notebook
It's time for the notebook game. We're going to shut the door on Rendlesham, at least for now. Never to say, we'll never
Ooh.
say never. We may come back some year. But
Oh.
for now,
If they find something new out, we'll
we'll bring
touch
it
on
up.
it a little bit again, and
For sure.
So everybody in the chats, if you're hanging out, if you don't know how the notebook game goes, I have 5 notebooks. I keep all my notes in notebooks, all old school style. Pick a notebook 1 through 5 and a page number 1 through 100, and I will read whatever's on that page. You get to see into my weird little mind.
And it is
So,
not
Julie-
in binary.
It is not. I would have to have like 100 notebooks for one notebook worth.
Oh,
Oh my
Lord.
goodness.
More than that, probably.
First one up is Julie with book
No, you'd have to have
55.
8 notebooks for every notebook you have.
And you have to hear what I haven't told you yet, Jess. I just
Uh-oh.
purchased a binding machine so we can make our own notebooks.
Ooh, cool.
For different reasons, but, it can
Awesome.
be used for that.
Nice.
Okay, so Julie's page is on Water Babies of Massacre Rock and Pocatello, Idaho. Yeah. So, in Idaho is a state park called Massacre State Park. It's actually on the Oregon Trail. Massacre Rocks got its name from a narrow passage through the boulder configuration where Native Americans would ambush settlers that were traveling through. That's how it got its name, Massacre Rock. Near this spot, the Snake River runs through and is the area named for the infamous water babies and their paranormal activity. Water babies are the supposed spirits of drowned children who were killed by their Native American mothers during the area's harsh drought and famine time. Another version says it happened among a group of white settlers during the 1800s. The main version tells that the babies did not drown, but were changed and grew fins and gills in order to survive in the water, or were granted these in pity from the water spirits. People have reported seeing the water babies playing in the canals and rivers in the Massacre Rocks area. Some are benevolent, and others will lure you in by crying and pull you in with them to drown you. The activity in the area reported is, of course, babies' cries, women's cries, screams, water bubbles and splashing, war cries, lights, feelings of being watched, smells of stagnant water, and shadows in the water. Ooh,
Nice one.
creepy. Water
Yeah.
babies.
I'm trying to remember what show we did that. We did something with, I can't remember. It may have been for Fringe. I don't know. Can't remember. But I know we had all kinds of stuff like that that we brought up. The next one is Ginger with Notebook 1, page 19, please, and thank you.
I got
While you're
it.
bringing that up, Ian said YouTuber Simon Holland has a great catalog of videos about Rendlesham. Worth a look.
That's
Nice.
Okay, so Ginger's is on the Wallace line.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of places out in the middle of the ocean,
That was you did that on Fringe, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the ones when I was gone, I think, or I got
I think
sick.
so. Yeah.
So I have the information on it, but I never used it. The Wallace line was discovered by Alfred Russel Wallace in 1859. 35-kilometer wide, or about 22 miles wide. It runs from the Indian Ocean through the Lombok Strait northward through the Makassar Strait between Borneo and, I can't read my own writing, someplace else, and eastward south of Minderas into the Philippine Sea. Animal life on either side are remarkably different. On the Asian side is tigers and elephants, while on the other is home to kangaroos and Komodo dragons. Also, it was said that the animals didn't actually physically cross this line, and they weren't sure why. And it's still kind of that way today, like, unless you're, like, physically shipping them over into zoos. They don't physically cross that for some reason.
It's pretty fascinating. It was an interesting show that we did.
Yeah, it really was.
It was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the Wallace line. That's another rabbit hole if anybody's interested. That's a good one, Ginger.
All right, what do we got next?
Chelsea's up next. Book 5, page 35.
Okay.
That was a very interesting one.
Yeah, that was a good show. We were talking about the possibility of a lost continent.
Yeah, that's right. I couldn't remember exactly which show it was. Yep.
Which we've now they say that that's likely.
These are my notes from the Sally house.
Nice.
So these are okay. I'm sure all of you know about our story about the Sally house. If you've been on here for any length of time, we had a lot of high strangeness and weirdness happen with it. And afterwards, we went back and realized that we had missing time. We realized that we had kind of forgotten about some things. And when we started really thinking about it again, things started popping back up. And a lot of like weird synchronicity started happening to not only me, but our entire group at this time. And this is some notes that I was just writing on that as I was going through the Sally House stuff. And it says, I think our theory about an opening and closing of a portal in the house is absolutely right. Every team and individual who has investigated or simply visited the home has had different experiences. Even the director says the house never feels the same day to day. Sometimes it's quiet or angry or it just feels weird. Sometimes it's very comforting. A portal opening and closing would cause this by bringing new spirits and whisking them away just as quickly. For an example, the director brought protective stones into the home with her while giving a tour. They went missing from her pocket while in the house and were never found. We could assume whatever spirit stole the stones from her passed through the portal closing and took the stones with them. People also keep mentioning activity going up the stairs, the same path we assume that the portal moves. We have an entire theory about how the house opens and then shuts itself down again, and it involves the stairs. In the Astonishing Legends podcast on the Sally House, their File 10 recording sounds like several conversations going on, whom are speaking of the investigators running the recorder. Completely reminds me of our own question and answer closed ghost box session with Pam. And that's what's on that page. So I do this, as you can see, the beginning of this notebook is our actual notes from Sally House. So whenever we go on an investigation, I start notes. So this says Sally House investigation, July 12th, 2019, Friday, hot and dry. And it lists all of us that were there. It lists where we were at, the address. We arrived at 3:35 p.m. Took exterior pictures, opened house, turned on air conditioning, set up base camp and dining room. 3:50, ran meters, hotspots, downstairs, microwave, fridge, TV. I write down everything, and then when I get home, I go through everything, and then I write a section of notes, reminding myself of things. How did we feel? Do I have any conclusions? Did we get anything on the meters? Did we get anything in recordings? And that's part of that notes that I just read to you.
It's pretty fascinating. I would encourage anybody, and we have before, is if you are on an investigation, that's one of your best tools is to take a notebook and document, because we've gone back 10 years later and found things that didn't make a lick of sense at the time, but are absolutely relevant now.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a record of what was going on as it was happening, because I believe your stories you originally, I remember it at least, if I'm thinking of the right one, is after the investigation was over, you guys were driving home, you were kind of under the impression not much happened, that it was kind of not a big deal.
We were very apathetic for at least 3 weeks afterwards.
Yeah, we were. It wasn't until a couple of weeks later that I even realized we had missing time. I was so
Yeah.
sure that nothing had happened at the house that I didn't even touch my notes for a couple of weeks. So,
And just like a couple of years later, like she was saying, this happened in 2019. Just a couple of years later, when we were doing a case files by candlelight it was Halloween before last. I was going back through to pull pictures of the Sally house and had just like not even a 30-second clip of Jess holding a set of rods up, and they weren't moving. So I just turned off my camera, and I just happened to watch it this time, and there's a shadow that goes through it that never even caught at the time.
yeah. We actually ended up calling it, because we started hearing that this happens all the time at the Sally house, that people will leave thinking nothing happened, and then weeks later they'll start remembering things.
Yeah.
We started calling it like a paranormal dissociation. And we also think, I mean, we have about an hour of missing time inside that house, and it falls right in the middle of some really insane stuff that started happening all at once. And to this day, we're a little nervous about what might have happened to us in that hour's time that we are now all missing.
That we
It's a
wouldn't have
little
caught
scary.
have just not documented so well.
Yeah.
Down to the minute.
Yeah. Sally House is incredible. Like I said, synchronicities for us, like, insane. For instance, I mentioned the Astonishing Legends podcast. It's because of Sally House that I found that podcast. And just to let you know, if you want to talk about some crazy synchronicities, they got an insane EVP at that house. The first time I heard it, I almost vomited because it is so frightening. Go check out Astonishing Legends Sally House episodes and go listen to it yourself, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But synchronicity-wise, they got their recording. They investigated to the day 1 year before that we were at the house and had no idea at the time who they were. So,
Right?
Yeah, we had
synchronicities.
It was interesting for sure.
Yeah. All right, moving on, because we'll be here all night if we keep talking about Sally House. It's one of our
No
favorite
shit.
topics.
The next one up is Ian with book 1, page 53.
Yes. So we're back on UFOs again. Thank you, Ann. This is a incident that happened in Pittsburgh, Kansas on August 25th, 1952 on Yale Road between Frontenac and Pittsburgh. This is one of my favorites, and I know Pam knows which one this is. So William Bill Sayers, 36, 5:30 a.m. on his way to work, he saw an object hovering above the ground west of the roadway off to his right about 250 yards at a horizontal angle of about 40 degrees from his car. He slowed down to watch it. He pulled up to where it was parallel to his car, stopped, and slid out of his passenger side and out. As soon as he stepped off the road, it rapidly ascended and continued straight up quickly until it was out of view. It looked like two platters or bowls had been put together, he said. He estimated it was about 75 feet long and 40 feet wide and about 15 feet through the midsection. It was a dull aluminum color, smooth surface, one window in the front section, with head and shoulders visible of one man sitting motionless, facing forward. The interior glowed with a blue light. There were several windows in the midsection that also glowed but changed colors. Along the outer edge were a series of propellers mounted on a bracket so they moved in a horizontal plane and revolved at a high rate. And that is that one. It's one of our more famous ones here in the area. I believe he was a radio station DJ.
I think
and
so,
he was
yeah.
headed
I believe
into
so, yes.
to work in the morning. And it actually happened more towards Frontenac than it did Pittsburgh. If you get up and look at a Kansas map, it's a very kind of rural area. Pittsburgh's it's not a big town. It's a decent sized town for our area, for a rural area of Kansas.
Yeah, with a good college. Shows the college town.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
that's an interesting one.
What do we got next? Is there anybody
That's
next?
it.
I think that might have been it.
We're all
Let me go back and
done.
make sure. Ian was the last one on there, yeah.
All right. Kind of right on time.
Perfect.
Okay.
Bad.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's finish this out then. Thank you everybody for hanging out for the second part of Rendlesham. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Yeah.
It's always good to dig into a really good story that's got a lot of
Meaty one.
information in it. Yeah. With a lot of theories.
Yes.
With lots of fun theories. All right. So thank you to the guys for hanging out with us tonight. Mark and Enzo, thank you
You
so
are
much for
very
bringing
welcome.
your expertise
For having me.
to us.
For sure. It's always a good time.
Yeah. Really quick, if you're up in the live chats right now, either on YouTube or Facebook, take a second to hit all those buttons and subscribe and bells and all the fun things. Of course, check in with us and with your favorite stories and stuff like that. Check out our back catalog. If you're hanging out, listening to us on your favorite podcast provider, take a second and give us some stars. Meet us again here in 2 weeks. It'll be March 25th, I believe, at 7 p.m. We're going to do the history of ghost photography.
Oh,
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's going to be super fun. In fact, if you at home have a ghost photo of your own, or maybe a favorite one that you have, send it in to us and we'll include it in with our lineup.
Absolutely.
We're going to do a little bit of the history of ghost photography, and then we're just going to start bringing you some fantastic photos and some of the stories behind them and just see what pops out. Should be fun and spooky.
Nice.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
no cheating, sending AI stuff either.
Yes, no AI. In fact, we might have to do a little section on that, like how to tell what is AI and what's not. Because there's
Sometimes
ways to
it's pretty
tell.
hard.
It is.
It is.
But
Yeah.
sometimes you can like screenshot that and Google it, and it'll show you all of the other AI versions of it. Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, we're going to let everybody go for the night. Have a fabulous evening. Keep it weird, keep it strange, and remember, it's all connected. And good night.
Good
Good
night,
night,
everybody.
all.